Diane here again. Day 11, I guess it is, of the 30 Days, 30 Authors Challenge. I'm sorry, I won't be able to do what I wanted to do today, which was take you to a particular historical site. That is going to have to wait for tomorrow. The air quality is really bad, and I'm not feeling very well today, so sorry about that. It will happen tomorrow, regardless of the air quality, though. I promise I'll go down there in my car, and I have asthma. I have to be a little bit careful with that kind of thing, So instead today I'm going to switch it up a bit, and I'm going to do what the next day's challenge would have been, which is talk about my book blurb. So if you were with me yesterday, I read a book blurb from the back of Brown Girl in the Ring by Nalo Hopkinson, and I thought it illustrated a well done book blurb. And that's part of why I chose it. Plus, I really enjoyed the book, so I figured that it was better to read something from a book that I liked. So today I'm going to cover a couple of my book blurbs. I'm not just going to do one, I'm going to do 3 different ones, and there's reasons for this, and that's because they're all very different. This is not all the books I've written or contributed to. These are just samples. So, now the first one I'm going to cover, here we go, here, turn the camera around again. This is my professionally published non-fiction pagan book, The Witch's 8 Paths of Power. So, being a non-fiction book and having been done by a professional publisher, this is going to have different qualities on its book blurb than my other books. So, turn the camera back around here. I'm in my messy front porch if you're seeing what all the junk is, right? So, this one also, like Brown Girl in the Ring, has publisher's notes and quotes from other pagan authors who work for Red Wheel Weiser, which is the company that published my book. And, you know, it's endorsements, right? I'm not going to read those. That's not what I'm after. I'm going to read what they wrote on the back for the blurb to describe what the book is about. In his Book of Shadows, Gerald Gardner writes about the witch's eightfold way as a means of developing one's magical abilities. In this contemporary take on the eightfold way, author, witch, and high priestess Lady Sable Aradia invites readers to explore the 8 different components of evolution in witchcraft. Using exercises, meditations, and practical magic, any serious student of witchcraft will be able to master these 8 paths and improve the effectiveness of their magical work. From spells to sex rites to trance to flying ointments, Lady Sable has created a step-by-step guide to mastering the advanced arts of witchery. Okay, so some key notes about this blurb. One is that it is immediately drawing back to witchcraft's roots as British traditional Wicca, which is important to some people. So it's important to point that out. It might interest people who are interested in British traditional witchcraft. The second thing is that it mentions that it's a contemporary take. It's not your standard stuff that you may have gotten from other sources. And I think that's true. I think that's something I really tried for. So, then it points out my qualifications, right, which is that I'm an author, and I'm a witch, and I'm a high priestess, and that I've earned the lady title through my tradition, which, you know, I mean, like, okay, I won't get into the titles debate. I will say that it matters to some people, right? So it was a marketing thing that my publisher thought was important to mention on the book. My own feeling about it is that and 5 cents will, you know, get you 5 cents, right? So, whatever, but there it is. And then it explains kind of how I'm laying it out, but it's also mentioning stuff that might get people to go, ooh, that's interesting. You know, when you say sex rights, people are like, oh, sex, ooh, you know. I don't know. I'm not doing anything in this book that hasn't been written before by other people. Yes, there are rights in there that are based around sacred sexuality. Yeah, I don't pull any punches when it comes to it, but I don't think it's, you know, all that titillating, I guess, right? So yeah, and anyway, that's that book. So I'm going to put that there. Now, I just got my proofs back for a book that I am publishing in print format. This is a dystopian horror book. It's a bit of a departure from what I have typically done. I'm not even sure how I feel about this book. I just had an idea, wanted to write it. The Kindle Storyteller competition was coming up. I thought, okay, here's a thought, and I put it out there. And unfortunately, I was disqualified because I did not have my print book formatted in time for their deadline. So I didn't even realize that a print book was required until the last minute. So it's kind of standing on its own. This version of the cover was in part designed by Marquetta Sowers, so thank you very much for helping me with that. She does professional cover design, and she has graphics alteration too, and other author services, and I will include her link below. So this is the back, and that's where the book blurb is, and I will read this. All right. The habitat is the last bastion of humanity, in a world destroyed by war and climate change. All aspects of life are tightly controlled, from what people read to what they eat. Every human being is also a resource, assigned to tasks that best suit their capabilities in the eyes of the hegemony. It has to be that way, to manage desperately limited resources. Paul Rand's parents once dreamed of a better world, but he has been alone for a long time now, and he has never known any other life. Now he is about to turn 16, and he is due for his assessment, which will determine the course of his future. He is about to come face to face with some of the habitat's deepest secrets and its darkest horrors. They are worse than he can possibly imagine. So I'm going to draw attention to the formatting of this. You see, I've drawn attention to some specific lines and words in the lines, right? And that was an intuitive thing. I did that largely because I wanted people to focus on those particular elements. So, breaking it down, I'm establishing my setting, which is obviously not quite the world that we know. And it's clear that it is a dystopian environment, I think. And I've also outlined who the enemies are and what the challenge is. I've also let you know that my protagonist does not necessarily carry all the opinions of the world that he has been raised in. I'm also warning you that this is a horror book, because the cover might, it was deliberately designed, thanks to Marquetta, to be a little bit sinister, but it may not tell you that it may not give you an idea of the genre. So I wanted to make up for that in the blurb. So, turn the camera around here again. Okay. So that is coming out in print imminently, which is another reason why I mentioned it, of course, and it will be available probably within the next week. It's in the final approval process from CreateSpace because I got my proofs, I noticed some errors, I resubmitted it in order to fix those errors, and we'll see it in a week or so. Now, my final blurb is for the third book in my Weird West Chronicles, which is a serial of novelettes and novellas. Right? So be aware of that when you are picking up the book. These are not full-length novels, and they're not intended to be. At the end of the year, when I have written 6 of them, because I'm doing a 2-month publishing schedule, I've got a firm deadline of publishing one every couple of months, then I will create a print book that will have all 6 stories in it, because I feel that that would be a better bang for your buck, honestly. Okay, so here's my blurb for this one. It's a dangerous time for the apprentice gunslinger Graham Walsh. Before he is initiated into the gunslinger order, he must undergo the ordeal of a spirit quest. Will he succeed in meeting the spiritual challenges he must now face? Or will the forces of darkness be able to turn Graham from his chosen path? And what implications will his visions have for the future of the Weird West? Welcome to the Weird West, the world next door, where Western meets high fantasy, apocalyptica, and a dash of steampunk. Okay, so what did I do with this blurb? I established my protagonist, and I also established that he's the viewpoint character for this particular story, because in book 2 he was not. Another one of the characters, Peter Woodhouse, was the viewpoint character. I've established the nature of the dilemma, though I haven't told you exactly what's going to happen with that. It's a question. Right? And I've implied that there's more going on there that will have future implications in the series, which was what I wanted to do. And then my little description at the bottom, welcome to the Weird West. I include that in every one of the blurbs for my Weird West Chronicles, because I want you to know that this is not, it's different. Right? One of the reasons why I chose indie publishing is because I had difficulty finding a home for the first book in this series. The first issue being its length, being a novella, there's only a few places that will publish such a thing, so it would have had to have been shoehorned a lot. I did try, but generally that's what I got told. It's too long, that sort of thing, right? The other thing is that it's such a weird genre, in that it's such a mashup of things, that I felt that a lot of people didn't want to take a risk on it. It sounds like pulp fiction, and it is, because it takes a bunch of different genres of pulp fiction and puts them together, and I hope subverts the tropes successfully. That's my goal, not to ignore them, but subvert them, right? In some cases, they happen the way you expect, and in a lot of cases, they do not. And I also wanted to establish that it's kind of a blend of science fiction and fantasy. It really can't be classified as either one, which is why it was perfect for Sci-Fan magazine. Science fantasy is what Sci-Fan stands for, and they published the initial, a blurb, a section, an excerpt of Showdown, the first book, in their most recent issue of their publication, which is issue number 7, I believe, the July issue. Next month they'll be publishing something from my Toy Soldier saga, which I'll talk about later. That's all I have to say right now. This turned out to be a little longer than I intended it to be. I will see you tomorrow, and hopefully I will be at the historical site I wanted to show you. Bye.